If you approached the gates of an Assyrian palace nearly 3,000 years ago, the world around you would shift long before you crossed its threshold. The air would feel heavier, sound would seem quieter. People approaching the entrance would straighten their posture, lower their voices, adjust their clothing as if preparing to be evaluated by something that wasn't even alive. But it felt alive. Two monumental figures would rise before you, carved in stone, motionless yet impossible to ignore. Their expressions calm but commanding, their wings stretching upward like the shadow of a giant bird frozen mid-flight. Their bodies were a fusion of forms, not fully animal, not fully human, and not quite divine, yet somehow all three at once. They were the Lamassu, ancient hybrid guardians whose presence alone was meant to influence the minds of those who passed between them. They were crafted with intention, with precision, and with a psychological sophistication that continues to impress modern historians. And now, with thousands of Assyrian tablets translated, we know these figures were part of a sophisticated system, not decoration. The Lamassu served political power, spiritual protection, social order, and psychological influence simultaneously. To stand before one was to confront something that blurred the line between mythology and architecture. Imagine arriving at Nineveh, the center of an empire that dominated the ancient world. The road widens, dust swirls under the sandals of travelers, and even the noise of the busy marketplace fades as the gate comes into view. Because everyone knows what stands ahead, two colossal Lamassu carved from immense blocks of limestone, each weighing more than 30 or 40 tons. Each standing taller than a war chariot, their eyes carved to face forward with unwavering attention. And then there was the feature that unsettled visitors most, something you wouldn't notice unless someone told you. Each Lamassu had 5 legs. From the front, it appeared still, planted firmly like an immovable guardian. From the side, the extra leg made it appear as if it was walking, stepping in unison with whoever approached. This was not an artistic error. It was intentional. A calculated design decision meant to create the impression that the guardian could both remain and follow. That it wasn't confined to stone. That it observed, evaluated, and moved with you. The human head represented conscious judgment, the ability to think, to assess motives, to recognize deceit. The body of the bull or lion symbolized raw power, endurance, and unshakable strength. The wings symbolized dominance over unseen realms, protection that extended beyond the physical world. The horns represented divine authority, spiritual legitimacy sanctioned by the gods. The Assyrians believed that danger rarely announced itself with weapons. It often arrived silently, hitching a ride on the intentions of others. Jealousy, curses, illness, negative omens, the invisible forces of the spiritual realm, these were threats just as real as invading soldiers. And every danger, seen or unseen, entered through the same place, the threshold. Doorways were weaknesses, openings where forces could slip through. Walls protect you, roofs shield you, but doorways invite risk. The Lamassu existed to seal that risk. Foreign emissaries wrote about the experience of entering an Assyrian palace. They described feeling suddenly exposed, as if the Lamassu could read their thoughts. Their posture changed. Their confidence withered. Words rehearsed for weeks evaporated the moment they passed between the guardians. Even those who didn't believe in spirits or curses felt an uneasy pressure in their chest, a sense that they had crossed into a world where the rules were different and the air itself carried judgment. Ordinary citizens reacted the same way. People lowered their heads. Mothers quieted their children. Soldiers instinctively straightened their backs. Even loyal subjects felt compelled to show respect. Because the Lamassu weren't passive. They were authority carved in stone. Assyrian kings understood the power of atmosphere. They understood that the first step inside the city had to feel like stepping into a world under divine supervision. Before a visitor reached the throne room, before they stepped into the audience chamber, before they spoke a single word, the Lamassu had already shaped their mental state. And archaeology shows just how serious this system was. For decades, scholars assumed the Lamassu were merely artistic guardians, elaborate symbols of protection. But excavations changed everything. Beneath many Lamassu statues, layers of burnt incense were discovered, solidified into dark resin. Clay bowls smashed intentionally, ashes of animal sacrifices, fragments of ritual tools, oils long evaporated but still visible as stains on the stone. These weren't random traces of ancient activity. They were ritual remains, evidence that the Lamassu weren't just carved, they were maintained, federal honored, in some sense, activated. They were part of a spiritual technology, a belief system rooted in the idea that protection wasn't static. It needed upkeep, renewal, alignment with the divine. Inscriptions carved into their surfaces included phrases like, "Let the Lamassu guard the king's breath. Let no evil cross this threshold. Let the protectors see the heart of those who enter." These weren't poetic lines. They were commands, instructions, protocols for maintaining the barrier between the safe space and the outer world. Lamassu were the first psychological security system in human history. The Assyrians believed that the moment someone crossed a threshold, something unseen might cling to them, something harmful, something cursed. The Lamassu were placed in pairs not for artistic balance, but to create an invisible filter. Two beings watching opposite directions. Two presences evaluating whoever passed. Two guardians anchoring the space between order and danger. Assyrian texts describe people becoming sick upon entering sacred spaces with guilt in their hearts. Not because of germs, but because they felt exposed. The fear of being judged by the Lamassu was powerful enough to make a person tremble, sweat, or collapse. The psychological effect was real, regardless of whether the spiritual explanation was. And then came the collapse of the empire. When invading armies pushed toward the heart of Assyria, they did something unexpected. They didn't rush the palace. They didn't charge into the throne room. They didn't seize the treasury. They targeted the Lamassu. They shattered their faces. They broke off their wings. They toppled them from their platforms. Because they knew, even if they didn't personally believe in these guardians, that the people did. Destroying the Lamassu wasn't an act of vandalism. It was psychological warfare. It signaled that protection was gone, that the divine barrier had been broken, that the city's soul had been wounded. A destroyed Lamassu meant the kingdom was spiritually naked, unprotected, vulnerable. But the idea behind the Lamassu didn't die with Assyria. It spread like a shadow across cultures. Persians carved winged bulls into their palace entrances. Babylonians created protective deities called Shidu. The Greeks turned the concept into the Sphinx, a guardian of sacred spaces. Romans created their own threshold protectors. Jewish tradition described cherubim guarding holy boundaries. Medieval Europeans built gargoyles into their cathedrals. Islamic palaces adopted their own versions of hybrid protectors. The forms changed, the names changed, but the placement stayed the same. The doorway, because the fear that Lamassu addressed was universal and timeless. The fear of what enters uninvited. In the modern world, we imagine ourselves far removed from ancient superstitions, but we still place protective symbols above doors. We still hang charms. We still place statues at entrances. We still use security cameras, motion sensors, warning signs, modern equivalents of psychological guardians. The instinct remains. The boundary still matters. The threshold is still the place where danger enters. Today, when people stand before a Lamassu in a museum, even stripped of their original setting, many describe feeling something unexpected. A pressure, a heaviness, a sensation in the chest. Even if they don't believe in spirits or curses, they feel observed, measured. Because the Lamassu are not simply statues. They are expressions of an ancient truth. Protection is not only physical, it is emotional, psychological, symbolic, spiritual. And the Assyrians, thousands of years ago, figured out how to carve that truth into stone. If someone you know loves exploring the deeper layers of ancient civilizations, consider sharing this video with them. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.